Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Disco Elysium. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you're chose to join me today as we go into the apartment. We leveled up, which is great. The apartment where our Sunday, well, it's not our Sunday friend, but it is the Sunday friend of that man that was up here, the owner of the apartment, as far as I can tell anyway. Didn't we have a thing over here? We didn't, did we? No, we did not. Okay, I think we're good. Let's go on in. And, you know, I don't know what I'm doing here, to be honest. There's a Sunday friend. Got a quarterly business magazine. We got things all over the place. Expensive men's perfume lingers in the air. Governmental issues take me all over the highway show, as you can see, says the man. How do I know it's expensive? Am I good at knowing perfumes? And also, how do I know if it's a men's perfume? An old photo of the same apartment, dated 01. Someone is always watching, he says. Buckets of paint on a layer of old newspapers. They have been doing renovations. None of this is weird. Is that his accent? An exquisite canopy bed made of metal. If stability is ensured, progress will naturally follow. Right. An empty ashtray. That is blatantly... Wow. In a wider sense, this is actually my apartment. Or this is actually my apartment and yours. Dishes soaked up in a pot, we find. We find also money with every one of these things, which is good. Flyers for underground parties. Transparence has always been our highest priority, he says. Dates for open lectures at a local university. Stability is key for progress, huh? All of this is perfectly normal. A bit mundane, if anything.
Officers of the Reversal Citizens Militia.
The man in business casual removes his cufflinks. You shouldn't be seeing him in an intimate setting. For some reason you feel this man is your superior, says our authority. Oh, that might explain why he's talking about stability. Actually, it's sort of interesting, because it's very easy to look at history and look at the periods of the greatest progress in, you know, in whatever field you're trying in whatever field they're trying to, you know, assess the progress of. And you can see that you can easily correlate the periods of instability followed by the periods of great progress. Be them, for example, war is usually a very, like, to the point where it's a common misunderstanding that war is great because it promotes progress. It's not quite how it works, and the correlation is there, but the causation, it's not because of the war that the progress comes, it's because of the instability, but also it depends on how you think about things. But, you know, it's just great periods of great depression and periods of great social strife and all that sort of stuff. But of course, you know, it depends on how you want, or you choose to... I'm doing an interrogation on him with my flashlight. It depends on how you choose to interpret things. Our esprit de corps says superior, but he's not in the command chain. Our composer says his hands are clean and well manicured. This is a man who knows the importance of appearances. So, okay.
My name is Charles Villedron. I am an official with the coalition government. I work for the Institute of Price Stability on assignment from Sir Leclerc.
Institute of Price Stability. I'm not well versed enough in political history to know what that is in reference to, or what that is, because my country doesn't have anything of the sort, and I don't think it ever had, although maybe in the times before the Republic.
I heard you talking to my friend outside. Very good, super. I'm here to assist you in any way possible. Ask me about the hanging.
No. First, ask an innocuous personal question, says our suggestion, to get the interview on the right foot. Yes, make it clear you're the one setting the terms here, says authority. Wasn't it you, authority, that just told me he's my superior? Authority, what do you know? Let's pointing at the bed? Yeah. Before we go on, I absolutely have to inquire about this wonderful canopy.
Oh, yes, my friend has a great eye for these things. He refuses to tell me where it came from. It's a mystery. I believe they call this type of frame industrial. It's very comfy. That's really all I can tell you about it.
He forms a little rooftop with his fingers. I think it's called the Scholar's Cradle. By somebody, anyway. It's not necessarily the official name. Cold air sweeps in from the balcony. That didn't work at all, says our authority. Shut up! The lieutenant takes his notebook out and nods to you and to proceed. Can you tell me about your friend? Ah, my friend. My friend is a good young man. His family immigrated here from Kedra, and life has not been easy for him. But he understands the importance of education. He has taken his future into his own hands, and that's all that matters. What's Kedra? Kedra is a candidate member of EPIS, but between you and me, their potential membership is a more contentious issue. What do you mean? Also, more than what? That it's never going to happen. You mean that? Yeah. They entered the negotiations in 21, and it's been pending ever since. And what's this EPIS thing you keep talking about? EPIS is a very special program developed by the Moral Intern to support certain Occidental nations. It began as a unified system of weights and measures, which proved to be a wild success. Nothing but kilograms and centimeters as far as the eye can see. Which is actually not, both of those are not the real life units of measure. Grams and meters are the universal. USI? Is it USI? They have a name. I don't know the name of them. But, you know, the metric system is based on a lot of measures. Measure of distance is gram. Yeah, I'm very good. Measure of distance is meter. Measure of weight is gram. Measure of volume, for example, is liter. And there's a few others. And to my surprise, it's all called metric, even though it's, you know, it's not necessarily based on the meter, because some of them are not. The liter is, I believe, the liter is based on a meter, although the definitions do change over time. So, for example, I think it's so the weight is a square meter of water is a ton. I think it's something like that, or originally was like that for some of these measures and the relationship between them. But things are not quite the same, and they're not measured the same way anymore. Also because water changes weight depending on many ways and many reasons, like temperature and how pure the water is, and just a bunch of other stuff. Which does mean that very, very tiny measurements, you need better ways to measure all this stuff. So that's why we don't use the same ways of measurements anymore, even though we still call them the same, and they're roughly the same as well. Our logic says, God, yes, sweet standardization, the backbone of rationality and commerce. It is indeed. Well, the last part, the first part is more of a philosophical claim. The standardization is, even though it's kind of funny, because I think there is also a sort of there's a deeply political history behind the metric system, or I suppose behind both the imperial and the metric systems. But specifically the metric system, I know that that France and the USI or whatever is it USI? Universal. It's because it's French. It's a French initialism. So yeah, the France had a great influence in the adoption of the metric system. But it was actually, all of this stuff is very, very, like, even before the metric system, it's very much about commerce. I think it's the United Kingdom that had a very famous institute, a royal institute of scales and whatnot, that was basically to make sure that people didn't cheat at their scales and all that sort of stuff. And Portugal had the same as well. I still I know of places that where they keep the scales with a little, they don't use the scales anymore, but the scales with a little regulamentary tickets and all this sort of stuff. It's not a museum, but it's almost a museum. It's sort of amazing to think, how complex it is to make sure that people don't cheat. You go and buy a kilogram of flour and they sell you half a kilogram because the scales say a kilogram, and that was a serious problem throughout history. It was a serious problem, but that's it's a very important thing. It was such a wild success that we expanded it into an economic union for the processing of steel, another success, and between you and me, the Molar intern feels emboldened by this success, emboldened to take EPIS to the next level. What's on the next level? A supranational political alliance, the United States of Occident. Oh, yeah. I did get a gentle whiff of neoliberalism from his stability is the key to progress, because stability is the key to fat cats getting fatter. But because then that's the extent of my whiff there, if you're wondering. And while there's a lot of ways that you can approach any sort of supranational political alliances. There's many ways you can look at them. But I'm thinking this is a direct parallel to the European Union, which is to many extents, to a large extent, not to all extents, but to a large extent also a neoliberal institution. At least, I say neoliberal because it is neoliberal. It's not liberal as in classical liberal. You know what I mean? It's complicated. Liberalism is complicated. Anyway, it's politically centered insofar as the distinction between fascism and socialism. Anyway, is it going to be like this place here? I'm gonna ask. You mean Revachol? No, it's going to have transparent democracy. Then Revachol doesn't? Okay, well, I guess we're learning. Or maybe not. Is Revachol going to be part of EPIS? It's one day going to be a candidate member of EPIS, sure. Didn't you say that candidate members never become real members? He didn't, but I'm going to ask that. No, candidate members do become members. Why do we even have the whole system in place if they don't? It just takes time. Time and evaluation. But we were talking about my friend here, not politics, he chuckles gently. That's right, I did ask you about your friend, didn't I? Because of Kedra. That's where he comes from. How did you two even become friends? How did any of us become friends? Bad things happening on the Insulindian Isola. Oil platforms ablaze in the night. Civil wars lasting for years. Finally, the international community is forced to step in. What are you talking about? No one becomes friends that way. Au contraire. It's how millions of people end up where they are, meeting the people they meet. It's how I came here, and my friend, too. Yeah, still haven't told me who he is. Sorry, who? The man throws a quick glance at his watch. Your friend. It's me talking. Your friend, the smoker on the balcony? We were just talking about him. But I told you, officer. He's a bright young man here to pursue his education. Education is the foundation of the future, especially the arts. It is a cornerstone of our civilization. Fine, but what's his real name, even though I don't have even a single name, let alone a false name? Officer, you have to understand, I can't give you his personal information. I'm sure you have your own records, or methods, and databases, right? Please don't put me in this situation. So all you can tell me about him is that he's here to study the arts? He's deeply... And he actually didn't tell me that either. I wonder if there's a check there for a Fury. Education is the foundation of future spread of the art. Yeah, he didn't tell me he's here studying the arts. He's deeply enmeshed in the study of fine arts, yes. Okay, well, I guess he told me now. Which arts? Fine arts. Wait, is that the term? There's a term for, specifically at the mid-20th century, and before that, it comes from before, throughout Europe, that there's a name for arts. Oh, I don't know if it's called fine arts in English, though. In French, it's belle art. I don't know if art. Do you say art? in French? Or just ah? Because that sounds weird if it's just ah and you drop the T, as you probably would, because it's French and most of the consonants at the end are dropped. Yeah, it's just basically beautiful art, but fine just sort of implies a different thing. Anyway, which arts? He says, he's a truly free spirit. He likes all the arts. Perhaps graphic design? Printmaking? Who knows? The world is also, by the way, design isn't art. It's a pretty important... It's a pretty important aspect of learning design. But although there's more to be said about it, because even the definition of art can be... it's complicated. But coming from him, a very new liberal understanding of what art is, it's art for art's sake, where it's not meant to have a... It doesn't have to be to have a purpose. It doesn't have to be to have a purpose, and that's one of the reasons having that understanding of art as a movement in first place allows you to understand why design is not art. Although it might have an artistic aspect to it, it's always shaped by, by the design and by the what the design is for. I think there's a triangle, but of course all that I know about design is from the 70s. Really, that I never really studied design, and I do have a family member who has, and I've read some of the stuff in papers and whatnot. There's a triangle that says function, form, and there's the other one which is experience or something, or it's working. Yeah, I think so. Basically, when you design anything, you need to make sure that it works. You need to make sure that it looks good or looks to what you want it to look like, and you also need to make sure that it works as in the sense of usability. I think it's usability, and the other one is mechanics or something. I don't know. Anyway, the point is. Anyway, he's talking. Who knows? He says the world is open wide for a talented youth like him. I wonder what else is open. No, let's not go there. What are you doing in his apartment by yourself? I'm just enjoying the view. The man smiles, nodding to the window. Isn't it rude for your friend to leave you alone like this? We're old friends. Nothing's taboo between us. He comes and goes. I'm sure you'll see him around. He's very active. I had something else in mind. I'm all ears, officer. So you actually witnessed the lynching? I'm sorry to say I did, officer. The man gives a solemn nod. Start from the beginning, if you don't mind. Officer, it's very difficult to describe what I saw that night. It was so surreal to me, like in a play. Our drama says, he holds out his hands and blossoms his fingers, like a drama teacher setting the scene. The lieutenant is already scribbling notes down. What do you mean, says the lieutenant, like in a play? It was just so strange. I could barely comprehend what was happening. I was on the balcony when it happened, getting some fresh air. I remember that first day they came... they came in, carrying what looked like a body, and then I saw all the surrounding windows go dead, one by one. That's when I understood I should not be seeing this. Kim says it sounds like the victim was unconscious, or at least incapacitated. Interesting. How many of them were there? I couldn't tell you exactly. Less than 10, maybe 8? The lieutenant sends you a sharp look at the mention of that number. Were any of them huge, like 200 kilograms huge? That's a giant you're describing. No, they were all quite human, so far as I can tell. Come on, 200 kilograms is human still. I mean, even more than that is human still, but like, it's not, it's a beast, but it's you could tell that it's a person. My God. Did any of them look like drummers? He's definitely not gonna know that. Drummers? Why? No. But then I don't know what a drummer is supposed to look like. Oh, sneaker shoes and hat the wrong way around. and some what's the name of the things, the basketball shirts that people wear for kicks? I think we can drop the drummer angle, says Kim. The lieutenant is impatient. That was my bad. Was it? Oh yeah, because it was him who suggested that. What happened next? I went back inside. Were you able to see anything from inside? Asks Kim. Officer, the yard was pitch black. There was nothing to see, but I could still hear their voices. They were threatening to kill that poor man. Were they men? Women? All men, I suppose. But again, I couldn't see very clearly. What ethnicity were they? I believe they were mostly white. Oh. Yeah, this game doesn't keep its race... What's the word? Racial lines? Yeah, this game doesn't keep its racial lines very correct. Or very... uniform. I think things go in and out for what... we as the 21st century humans think of race, and what these people from Revachol and all that sort of stuff would think of race. Because as I said before, it's been a while since I talked about this, but as I said before, race doesn't have to do with the color of your skin. It's a lot... It can even not have to do at all with the color of your skin. Like, for example, I don't know, let's say... well, it depends. It's complicated, but let's think of all the different colors of skin that African Americans have, and just, you know, they're still African Americans, and the same happens for white people, although to a lesser degree, mostly because of the nature of whiteness itself. But the point is, for example, the Nazis had the whole Aryan race thing going on, and that was specifically a very... while it was very connected to whiteness, it wasn't necessarily just being white. You could be white and not be an Aryan. And well, I say being white of skin, because even the term itself, being white, is very historically grounded. So you can just see basically all the Jews who weren't white, even though it's complicated. It's very complicated, and the Nazis were all just basically, it's all propaganda and misinformation. So it was very difficult, because the term itself, as far as I know, Aryan, comes from the Gaza area of the world, and that's where, like, Iran is and where Israel is, and those are all Aryan people, at least historically. And so Jews and Muslims, those are Aryan. But of course, the Nazis had a different idea of what that was supposed to be and what they were here for and whatnot. But yeah, just go back to it. Color of your skin is not your race. And while it in our current systems, or I say systems, but I mean in our current society, it does have a very strong bearing. It doesn't have to be that. And it certainly wasn't throughout history. It wasn't, well, I say throughout history. Mostly before the last 5 centuries, it wasn't really about the color of your skin, the race. Your race wasn't about the color of your skin. After the 1500s, it still wasn't very much about that, but it depends on where you are in the world and when you are in history as well, when you talk about this sort of stuff. Race theory is just really complicated, and I am not equipped to deal with it. I do note that this is weird. And it also doesn't tell me anything, because we do not know. We have no idea what a mondial is. We have no idea what a Semines is, because those things, like, imagine, maybe we're gonna learn, but imagine a mondial is somebody who has straight hair, for example. Is straight hair hereditary? Because of course, race as a concept is mostly unified by hereditariness. Yeah, that's not the word. It's sort of close to what I'm saying. But, you know, anything that is genetically sort of hereditary that you'd be able to tell, and you don't need to go to extremes like the Nazis did with all their phrenology and measuring noses and whatnot, because also that has an hereditary aspect to it. But anything that has an hereditary aspect to it is plausible, anchor point for racial lines in a fictional setting. So imagine, I don't know, let's pretend that straight hair is hereditary. I don't think it is. Or straight black hair, for example, like the Darkson in Valkyria Chronicles. But imagine, like, it's all about straight hair, and those are the Mondials, and it's all about red eyes. I don't know if they have red eyes, or do we have, is it green eyes? I think there's a color of the eyes that not everybody can have, like when they're born, because it's a little bit random. There's certain people that will like 2 people that will never have a baby of a certain eye color. But there could be, especially when you consider things like miscegenation or keeping people from mixing races when they in their offspring. Because when that starts happening, you can start creating a lot of more. If you have racist systems that prevent miscegenation, that can start to create a lot more obvious racial lines between people. So for all I know, I'm Mondial and Kim is Seminese. And we don't know. We will never know. It's impossible. So far, it is impossible to tell. Maybe we will know. What happened next? I'm going to ask. Well, that's the strangest part, officer. Nothing happened. It was oddly quiet for a public lynching. What do you mean nothing happened? They lynched the guy. Eventually, their shouts died down, and that was that. There was no gunshots, no celebratory shouts, no anything. Why didn't you call the RCM? The man wipes his glasses. You're right, of course. That is what one is supposed to do in such circumstances. I was simply in shock. I'm afraid I don't have anything else to add. About what time was all this happening approximately? Asks Kim. All I can say is that it was late. You didn't check your watch? My watch. He looks at his watch as though noticing it for the first time. Yes, now I remember. It was 30 minutes past midnight. Give or take. So let me get this straight. You didn't actually witness the hanging itself, did you? No, I didn't see the corpse until the following day. Well, those are all my questions. Thanks for your time. Of course. Anything I can do to assist the RCM? What's an official like you doing in Martinez? The coalition is only looking out for the price stability. He raises an index finger. Inflation is a killer, like a heart disease blocking the normal circulation of the economy. It must be controlled. The economy impacts the entire international community, which is why it requires international oversight. Okay, but what are you doing here in this apartment? Well, I'm renovating it. It is an interesting project. The building used to be a 12-story skyscraper before the cannons took the top stories off. This, of course, happened when the coalition forces landed here. He smiles. You could say I'm undoing some of the material damage the international community caused when we arrived. What is this international community? La Communauté Internationale? Is that how it's written? I don't think it is. Is it? Is what Ravacholians colloquially call the coalition. In other words, the nations that stopped the disaster of the revolution. And what do I call the coalition? Your employer, technically speaking, the governing authority of Ravachol. The RCM is but one part of this provisional administration. And what is the price stability? It is the most important thing, he says. That clears everything up. It's the central goal of any sound monetary policy. Maintaining the price stability is essential for maintaining high levels of economic activity, which is essential for maintaining high levels of employment, which is essential for maintaining the social stability. Basically, it makes sure, Kim says, it makes sure the price of bread doesn't change. Précisément. Too much inflation, bread becomes too expensive. Too much deflation, it becomes too cheap for bakers to produce. That's why the Institute of Price Stability works to keep inflation just below 2%. 2% of what? But not too far below, no, he says. Too below is also bad, but below but close to 2%. You're not answering my questions at all. The coalition believes it in the importance of informing the public about the benefit of the price stability. Transparency is one of our principles. Would you like an informational pamphlet? Okay, sure, give me a leaflet. A sound monetary policy is essential for addressing uncertainty. Stability is the raison d'etre of the moral intern. It's the reason why I identify as a moralist. He pats his pockets. But I don't have my leaflets on me today. That's too bad. You can always call our information line. Making information available is part of the moral intern's commitment to transparency. I've heard about this moral intern before, but I want to know more.